Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. See, we've still got a few folks joining us from the reading room. I think we're going to go ahead and get started since we only have an hour for today. I am Betsy Hopkins, happy to be with you this afternoon, and I'm the Associate Director at the Office of Aging and Disability Services here. And I oversee developmental disability and brain injury services. And happy to have you join us this afternoon to share some proposed plans for some updates to some of the curriculum work that we're interested in getting some feedback on. And so I wanted to do have a couple of people introduce themselves before we jump in. First, I'm going to turn to Abby Stivers.
Great. Hi, everyone. I am Abby Stivers. I'm the Director of Workforce Initiatives with the Office of Aging and Disability Services, and I have the pleasure of working on this curriculum project and a couple of others on marketing and workforce-related issues for the Office of Aging and Disability Services.
Great. Thanks, Abby. And Crystal.
Hey everyone, I'm Crystal French. I'm probably going to give a little bit longer introduction than Abby did, but I'm the instructional designer and e-learning developer here at the Office of Aging and Disability Services. I originally started years ago with the Muskie School here in Maine, and then I transitioned after about 22 years there. I transitioned to a healthcare system where I created online learning for both clinical and non-clinical staff. And I did earn my master's in education at the great school UMO in Orono here, and with a specialty in instructional technology. So thank you for having me today, Betsy.
Thanks, Crystal. And Miranda.
Good afternoon. I am Miranda Whalen, and I'm acting as your Zoom host this afternoon. So if you run into any issues, please feel free to reach out to me directly. I am also the training coordinator here in Disability Services, and I work closely with Betsy and Abby and Crystal on this curriculum, as well as other DSP curriculum adventures and challenges. And some of you I know, and some of you, hello, it's nice to meet you. And we look forward to your partnership on this project.
Great. Thanks so much, Miranda and Abby and Crystal. So with that, we're going to have Abby and Crystal kind of walk through an overview of the course and some proposed ideas of how we want to roll this out. And then also at the end, there will be an opportunity for you to learn how individually, anybody on this call or any other person out there can take a look at the actual curriculum and provide us some feedback. So I just want to be clear that this is an opportunity for us to share where we've come so far, what our plans are, what the curriculum looks like. And then we really do want to have people provide some feedback and ask questions about it. So we're going to ask that you if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat throughout the presentation, but we're going to save plenty of time at the end to try to get your comments and questions at the end. So with that, Abby, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Sorry, the notification we were being recorded was over my mute button, so I couldn't figure out how to get around. But welcome, everyone. So as Betsy said, we're going to be talking about the direct support worker curriculum that is very much still in the works and that we're looking forward to getting your feedback on. I know a few people on the call have heard about this work. We presented about what we were trying to do about a year ago and a year before that, as this has evolved from universal credential, sort of look at that, core competencies, things like that. So we're going to walk through what we've been up to. As Betsy mentioned, we've gone through introductions. We're going to go through an overview of the course, and then we'll answer some of your questions or discussion points later in the presentation, and then give you the opportunity for next steps and how you can provide feedback on this or look at what we've done a little bit more closely on your own time outside of the call. So overall, for what we're doing, in 2021, the department undertook a survey of nationally available curriculum and best practice standards, and we basically found that there was no strong offering for a universal credential or even a credential which sort of addressed those commonalities between curriculum, between aging services, IDD, brain injury and autism, or even some of the mental health OBH stuff. And that was the direction that we were looking to go. So it didn't exist, and we wanted to figure out how best to create it. That same year, ODES also worked with Muskie to assess all of the HCBS training across our state of Maine and create a plan for future training. In 2022, we began the work on what we are calling the Direct Support Worker course with the goal of launching in fall 2024. So we are creating a direct service worker course. We're calling it the DSW course, which will be the basis of aging and IDD brain injury HCBS training for Maine. The course right now is roughly 20 hours of instruction, which includes 8 hours of in-person instruction and skills training. The goal and the idea is that the DSW course would create a stronger training for those who work across populations and within our training populations, with this course eventually taking the place of the PSS curriculum and becoming the basis for our IDD training. So DSP would still exist, but it would be a shortened amount of training, and this DSW will be the first building block on the road to that. It will also have the benefit of providing aging training, as we are all aging, to some of our DSPs and IDD folks more generally. So here's our proposed rollout. Nothing is set in stone. We reserve the right to change things or to adapt them as we find better ways, and we're looking forward to your input on this. So our goal is to create and launch the additional DSP modules in 2025. And this little diagram down here sort of represents how we are trying to change our DSP course. So before it was DSP from start to finish. DSP training was one course. Now the DSW course will be about 20 hours, and we hope to make the DSP training about 20 hours as well, as it builds on each other. The DSW course would be initiated within 30 days of hire, with both the DSW and the DSP portions to be completed within 6 months. This is roughly the same number of course hours as the current training. And then lastly, the department is developing a plan to update the DSP training that elevates learning and remains in alignment with the current training hours. Just as a reiteration, we're not trying to add training, we're trying to streamline and make training better across service populations, and with a stronger emphasis on the 2014 CMS core competencies model, which is quickly becoming the gold standard for training in HCBS across the United States, as recognized by other states, which is going to make it more portable eventually across states and more in line with national standards that we see evolving. So here are the key considerations, and we tried to address some of the things that we've already received some initial questions on. So cost. The department is using federal dollars right now to develop and launch the course, and the hope is to keep costs at a minimum. We are still figuring out long-term what any costs would be, but the idea is not to add additional burdens to providers or things like that. So right now we're using federal dollars with the idea of keeping costs as low as possible. And then time. The department is absolutely committed to reducing the burden of training time by creating more interactive training materials and maintaining or lowering course completion time. So we're not trying to add training hours with the DSW course. We are trying to make that training better and more absorbable for learners. We are so fortunate to have Crystal French working on this project, who is an expert on adult pedagogy, online learning, things like that, so that we can create something that's not just reading on a screen, that it's interactive and that you're learning from. And then with rollout, we propose this strategy, and that slide that I showed you before is going to show up later in the presentation, so you can look at that proposal again. But we welcome further comments, input, things like that on the timing of how to roll this out. We will also provide opportunities for anyone who would like to review and comment on the curriculum content. That'll be another slide where, if you would like to, you can contact Crystal and get a look at the course and what it would be like to take it, and provide some feedback to the department. We really want to make sure that what we are creating and have created is the strongest that it can possibly be. And that sort of underlines our last point, which is quality. Right now, this DSW course is pulling us into a greater level of quality. All the curriculum aligns with HCBS requirements. It is interactive with less reading. There are closed captioning and narration provided in every lesson. So you could watch it like a movie, you can read through it and watch it like a movie. You can interact with it in a little bit more interesting ways than just the standard curriculum. We are also working, once we have the curriculum finished and we've got all of our words and segments in there, to translate this curriculum into additional languages for our new Mainer learners and into American Sign Language to make sure that the information that folks are getting as they get trained is the most accessible to them, although the evaluations and things like that are likely to remain in English. So just as a reminder as well, the goal of creating a DSW course or a universal credential of any kind is to make sure that we are making progress on the issue of portability, making sure that, and we've heard this from a number of providers over the years, the fact that there are a lot of similarities between what a PSS does and a DSP, and having folks who can work across service populations would really be a help to providers and to the populations of folks that they serve. So this is a step in the right direction of creating something that is a more portable credential across those populations. And here I'm going to turn it over to Crystal to talk through what we've actually created and what the course will look like.
Great. Thank you, Abby. So first, let's take a bird's eye view of the course before we look at some of the sample content. So the direct service worker course will be comprised of 12 hours of online training, as Abby stated, followed by 8 hours of in-person training. The online component is made up of 7 units, and each unit includes lessons, and there's also a unit quiz for units 1 through 6. So people will be hopefully well able to pass the final exam, because there will be a final exam after unit 7. There are 29 total lessons that make up the 7 units. Each lesson is narrated. There are also some handouts, videos, learning activities, and knowledge checks, which we'll talk more about the glossary also in another slide coming up, but there is a glossary also. The last component of the online portion of the training is the procedures manual, which includes many of the tasks that a direct service worker may perform on the job. And then using the content that they learn from the online units and the procedures manual, they would then be ready to move on to the in-person training, where they will demonstrate their skills and verify those skills with a skills checklist. Now, you might be wondering what those 7 units are. So on the next slide, we've listed what those are. Unit 1, we will cover roles and responsibilities of a direct service worker. Unit 2, we discuss communication skills and interpersonal relationships. Unit 3 is about supporting health and wellness. Unit 4 covers individual needs, rights, and choices of the person served. Unit 5 is all about safety. In Unit 6, we discuss documentation. And lastly, Unit 7, we cover activities of daily living, including IADLs. So now we'll take a look at some of the sample content, tried to choose items that were kind of representative of the whole program. This black box around the content, in technical terms, is called the skin. And the options in the skin remain the same throughout each of the lessons in the course. So first, let's just take a quick look at those. So as we've stated, each slide is narrated. So the transcript will be shown here on the left of every slide. In the upper right-hand corner, we have a glossary link. So what we did here is we developed a 3-pronged approach to the glossary. First, there's a document that all of the compiled terms and definitions will be. And then in each lesson, as shown here, when the learner selects this glossary button, they'll see all the terms from that glossary document that are pertinent to this particular lesson. And then when a term from the glossary document is in the actual content of the slide, so the first time the glossary term is used in the lesson, there'll be this little glossary icon. And when the learner selects that icon, the glossary term and its definition is shown in the context of the sentence. Then the other item here in the upper right-hand corner is an accessibility button. This will show the navigation tips and shortcuts for those not using a mouse. Now, along the bottom of the skin, we have the audio control, the closed captioning, and also some setting controls. And lastly are the navigation controls for previous and next slide. And then in the middle of each slide, this white part in the middle of the skin area is where the actual content for that slide will live. So this particular slide is interactive. So the learner would select each button on the left for more information, and that information will appear in the box on the right. This is a screenshot, not the actual course. So that functionality is not going to work here in PowerPoint, but I at least we wanted to show a slide of what that would actually look like. And then on the next slide, we show what the handouts, how those would work. So for each handout, we show a thumbnail or snapshot of the handout, also including instructions to select the document to open it. All handouts are PDF files that the learner can then save and or print for future reference. Now on this slide, we're just showing like a little bit different content, and this is kind of typical of what you might see on certain slides where there's a title, there are just a few sentences, and like we said, they're all narrated, and there's clearly labeled points or key information. So it's not a wall of words that learners see when they go to a slide. In terms of how the course and where the course will be launched, it's going to be on a learning management system. So the way it will work is learners will log in and they'll proceed through each unit in order. If they get interrupted and they need to walk away, it's no big deal. They can just log back in later and they can pick up where they left off. They do need to proceed in order of each unit, and they must pass each quiz with at least an 80% in order to move on. Then at the end, after they've finished Unit 7, they will take a final exam. And again, they must earn at least an 80%, and then they will earn a certificate of completion. And then they can attend the live training with the trainer to do the skills demonstration at that point. So that hopefully will give a little bit of a flavor of what the course looks like before you actually jump into it.
Thanks, Crystal. So reviews. There are some things that we haven't nailed down about the course because it is a work in progress. It is something we are developing, and we are looking for feedback from those who do this work day in and day out. So Crystal's email is here on this side, crystal.french@maine.gov. And if you would like the opportunity to provide feedback on the DSW course, you can email Crystal and she will set you up with a way to get in there and make comments. We are also looking to make sure that the material in this course is at the highest national standards we can get it. So we've talked and reached out to national experts as well, who are going to look through this and ensure that what we've created is in line with the 2014 CMS core competencies. Folks from NASD's University of Minnesota HCBS training units, Advancing States, and PHI have all agreed to review curriculum for how it aligns with those core competencies and make sure that we have created the best thing possible. And then lastly, within the course, as we actually onboard learners, and this is not an immediate step as it happens, we're also going to be looking for learners to provide feedback on the course so that we can make any fine tunings or adjustments or improvements as we go along, which is pretty standard across curriculum development, where you can always make something better. There's always room for improvement, and we're going to be looking to our learners to get that last bit of feedback once we've launched it in a way where we can have segments of learner feedback as we go on. Oh, just as a note too, another step of this, and we can't work fully on the translations until we have the course sort of set in stone. But the next steps for this are to have the course translated into new Manner languages and into ASL to make sure that what we are creating is accessible to the workers that are going to be, doing a lot of this work. One of the reasons that the state of Maine decided to go ahead and make our own direct service worker course rather than cobble together anything else that existed was because that language component is not fully in some of the other states' training programs or available nationally from some of the large curriculum providers. And we thought that was important going forward for new Mainers and for those who would like American Sign Language. So just as a reminder of the proposed rollout, again, the same slide you saw before, our goal is to create and launch the additional DSP modules sometime in 2025. We're going to launch this first, you can see down at the bottom, for aging services sometime in the fall of this year. And that will, again, provide us with learner feedback to sort of tweak and to keep ramping this up as we figure out the pathway from DSW to DSP trainings. The DSW course would be initiated within 30 days of hire within both the DSW and DSP portions, so completed within 6 months. And we're working on the next steps for DSP. So I'm sure there are lots of discussion, comments, feedback, questions. I'm going to hand it back over to Betsy for that.
Great. Thank you both. Thanks, Abby and Crystal. I see we have a number of questions that have come into the chat. I'll just get to the first one, which we're in discussion on right now, what is the intent when we roll this out for existing workers who are DSPs, to have them go through this course, or would we offer a grandfather opportunity, et cetera? And we haven't really decided on that. Welcome your suggestions about what that would look like for your agencies. A couple of ideas we've thought about are providing existing DSPs to continue under their current certification and not take this course. We've also talked about the idea of a bridge, a bridge curriculum that helps to make sure that all the information that's needed, that's been updated since they might have taken the training before, is a shorter curriculum to kind of bridge to get the updated certification. So there's a number of different things. So we welcome your ideas about that. This is being recorded today. Somebody's asked if the slides will be available, and we're going to post it online. So you'll be able to see this recording. For anybody can see this recording if you've missed it today, or your other folks in your agencies have missed it. Let's see. Agencies have the ability to create learner accounts, or will they be submitting requests to ODES to put new hires in the system? I'm not sure if we've gotten to that level of detail on the learner side of things. Abby or Miranda, have we thought about that and figured that out yet?
I think that will depend on what our system looks like.
Yeah.
But right now, the intention is that there will still be various ways to get registered in the system. Simply, some of it is due to manpower and the amount of DSPs in the state. And we want to make sure that folks have timely access to the training that they need.
Okay. Yep. So there's another question about the transition to the curriculum, what that will look like. So we're still taking, that's under consideration. So we'll open to suggestions, I guess, as well. I'll say that again. And I see somebody has their hand up. Did you want to ask a question, Jeff?
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to get in the chat, but it doesn't look like I have access. Chat's disabled and Q&A are disabled for me.
Oh, okay.
Just had a question about coming from a workforce education development background and degree. Where in the ADDI model are we right now with this? And has there been any thought, like, it doesn't sound like we have any input on CDS. When is that transition going to happen where we don't have to have people going through CDS or using this, or are they going to do CDS in addition to this? And then a couple questions onto that is we have community membership training we have to do now, and we have some other trainings that are required to be live. Where do those fit into this? Has there been thought into that, timelines, time-wise? It seems like I think the way that you guys are progressing is great. I just feel like there's a lot of unknowns and questions that people are going to have, especially when we're going through audits. Right now we have 751 people that are being audited by the department. We're about 450 people deep into it that we've gotten audited. It's a process. So are we still doing that now with this coming down the pike? There's a bunch of questions I have, so I'm not sure where
Jeff,
those go.
you're from what agency again? Sorry.
Living Innovations.
Oh, okay. Gosh, that is a lot of questions. I'm going to start back to in the beginning when you talked about DSP versus DSW. So as we said in one of our slide, when we roll this out for IDD folks, it would be the DSW curriculum is the start, and that's really because we see that, this is a way to try to allow people to take a curriculum and pass it, this DSW curriculum, and they could start working as soon as they've enrolled in this, either as a DSP in an IDD agency or as on the aging side as a PSS. And so that's the plan for that, is to start with the DSW curriculum. At the same time, though, our plan is to add on DSP curriculum, and we will roll out this for IDD agencies once we have developed the add-on curriculum that's needed for DSP, and it'll be different than what is happening right now for DSP. So we're not going to have somebody do DSW and then all of the DSP curriculum that's happening right now in Elsevier College of Dark Support, for example. We'll roll it out once we have both of those things that can come together. So this part of the curriculum that we're sharing with you is just the direct support worker curriculum that will be a part of the entire training package that will be required by DSPs. And as we said earlier, our intent overall is that the training between this DSW curriculum and the DSP curriculum is going to be about the same amount of current hours that we require right now. So this is just the beginning sort of stage of this right now for us. So I think that answers that question. As far as the other trainings that you mentioned, we haven't really talked about how that would fit in. But that's, I think what I'm hearing you say is, can we consider all of the other trainings that we require from DSPs when we think about this going forward? Is that fair to say?
Yes, I think that makes sense. I also want to add on, Jeff, you asked specifically about the ADDIE model of course development. For anyone not well steeped in curriculum development, ADDIE is analyze, design, develop, implement, and evaluate. It's a standard way of making sure that the courses you're creating focus on the objectives you're actually trying to teach. So what do we want them to know is the first step, and then how are we going to get them to know that follows. And in that framework, Jeff, I believe we're between develop and implement. There are a couple of things that go back and forth with that, that we want to make sure that we are getting input on from the partners that we work with. So we're between those two models as we start to get feedback and check what we've made.
Going back to the Q&A, Crystal, how long is the opportunity for feedback on the curriculum? I think you mentioned that, but can you clarify?
Actually, I don't think I did mention it. That's on me. So I think our plan is to send out all of the links. So the way it will work just to give you a lot of information in a short period of time, is I'm going to send you 39 links. So it's going to be a link to every single lesson. I'll say which unit it goes to. So you'll get the entire, you'll be able to see the entire structure, and then you'll be able to click on each link to see the lesson. And then you can go through the lesson as if you're a learner, but it won't be on the learning management system. But you'll be able to see that in the right-hand column, there'll be a comments feature, so you can enter your comments directly on each slide. So what would be great is if there's content there that you see a need for improvement, it would be great if you could, give us specifics on what should be said there. That would be most helpful. And then if there's say content that you think is covered really well, that information would also be helpful to know. And then so as far as the comment period, we send that out next week. We're hoping to have all feedback back by the end of June if possible.
And as you're emailing Crystal with your requests, an introductory email going over what Crystal just said, how you get into the links if you have any problems, and the time frame will be listed in the introductory email that we will use to respond to you and manage that feedback.
Yes.
And I've gotten another couple questions, so I don't think we're clear about this. The current DSP training that's available now will be available for this next year. There's no plan to change anything that's required right now of DSPs. Once we determine, our plan is to dovetail the DSP curriculum with this DSW curriculum so that it fits with the DSW curriculum. And eventually, when we roll this out, it'll be the DSW curriculum as a kind of a starting point for folks. If they're going on to work as a DSP, they would need to take the extra training to become qualified as a direct support professional. And that is still under development. We have not chosen or started development of the new DSP curriculum, which we have heard from many of you that there's a desire to update that DSP curriculum for many reasons, and that is our plan. So this is just, we're just talking about the DSW curriculum here right now, but there won't be any changes for any providers or any DSPs until we've been able to develop and add on the new DSP curriculum, which will provide opportunities for people to give input and feedback on, et cetera, that we would roll out at the same time as this DSW. So I don't want people to panic and think, oh my God, I have to add this on to everything else that we're already doing for DSPs. That is not the plan. Let's see. So somebody's mentioning or suggesting a relatively concise bridge course might be something to consider. That's a suggestion here. So thanks for that. That's something we're definitely thinking about. An online database of certifications similar to how someone could look up on the status of an RN. So I think somebody's suggesting if we're doing enrollment for this training and other trainings, if there can be some way that people can access the learning management systems to look up their certifications or have a database of certifications. That's a recommendation going forward. Train the trainer classes. Yes, that is definitely, there will be a train the trainer curriculum put together and train the trainer model as part of this, right? Crystal, I don't know if you want to talk to that. For the online, for the in-person classes, I mean, sorry.
Yes, so the curriculum will be rolled out. The direct service worker training is going to be rolled out to the aging side first. So for anybody would be a new PSS, for example, they will be able to take this training first, which we are hoping to roll out this fall for them. So prior to that, we will engage all of the PSS trainers for a train the trainer. We don't know what that's going to look like for DSP because the DSP portion hasn't been developed yet. So there'll be lots more coming on that over the next year.
Yep.
So,
Question about if case management agencies will be able to access this training, and yes, whatever we end up with for DSW and DSP training, just as you are now able to access the DSP training, your case managers can access the training going forward. We'll make sure that's part of it. Will DSP and DSW curriculum be in one place? That is our goal, is to have it all be accessible to agencies or individuals in one place, so that you're not going over here for this piece and over there for this piece. And I heard a suggestion to also incorporate some of the other ODES required trainings that we have, depending on different requirements for services, new services, for example, that those also live in the same place. And as we think about a learning platform, that's really what we want, is we want everything to be on one learning platform that is accessible to people. And I'm asking Miranda or Abby or Crystal to jump in if anything I'm saying needs clarification or is not correct, please. Let's see. So the two courses will be hybrid and take the place of the PSS course. Two courses. I'm not quite sure I'm not quite sure if I understand that question. I don't know if you do, Abby, or
I'm happy to chime in on that one. I
Okay,
think
go
it's
ahead.
asking is what I'll give the answer to. So formerly PSS, that certification would only have to take the DSW course, because that is the universal first step on this, which includes ADLs. So the DSW course would take the place of the PSS course. That is a hybrid course. And then any details about in-person or not in-person are still being worked out for the DSP section of this. But PSSs would not need to take DSP. They would be at the DSW level, which is hybrid.
Thanks. Question about for considering any ongoing training requirements, for example, annual refresher courses. I confess we haven't gotten to that point. We're trying to, but that's a good comment as we think about rolling this out. The nice thing about it being on our learning platform and the development, the curriculum that we're developing here, or that Crystal has been developing for us, is that it is our curriculum. And so we can make updates to it as things change. It gives us so much more ability to be flexible and meet the needs of the people who are going to be taking this training. And of course, agencies who have see what's needed from their DSPs around the training. Let's see. Even after the release, I'm just going to read the sentence, because after the release of the new training system, could there be a spot for the worker to submit concerns or feedback with what they're learning? In my pipe dream, the express concern would both go to the agency and ODES in order to both address feedback and should the worker have a good point idea. Okay. So I think the request or suggestion is for learners who are taking the training, if they have suggestions or feedback, that there's a place to do that along the way. I don't know if that's a possibility or not, Crystal.
yes, of course. So just this week, we did start drafting the feedback form that learners would submit. So there are some, Likert type questions, and then there are some open-ended questions where people can put in their suggestions. So I appreciate that feedback. So it's good to know that those types of questions get a thumbs up from you. So thank you.
Someone asked about portability between states. If PSS is something that's a credential in another state, would it transfer to Maine? My guess would be probably not. This is going to be developed for Maine. It's pretty, unless there's a across the board national type of curriculum that's adopted. I don't think that would work necessarily.
Exactly. Right now, aging training across the states is very differentiated. All of the titles are different. Like DSP is a very national credential, but PSS, I believe, is only for Maine. And other states are actually playing catch up to Maine with creating any credentials or curriculum for those who provide services for our aging populations. So what the course does do, if it doesn't immediately give you sort of reciprocity between states, is that it sets it up on the same CMS core competencies that everyone is building towards, with the idea that as states create these kinds of trainings, or if they have something, we'll have a really one-to-one comparison to evaluate what they know and what we want them to know and what we might need them to take. So we can sort of do that evaluation process once we have the course completed.
There's a question, Crystal, and you can answer for now. I know in the DSP curriculum, we'd want to have this, but is there a plan to include information relating to sexual violence awareness and trauma-informed care? I don't know if that's covered in the DSW curriculum or not.
Certainly abuse and exploitation are covered in the direct service worker training. The trauma-informed care is not. So that's something that would clearly be on the DSP side right now. It's not in the current PSS curriculum, and we did not add it to the new.
Yeah. And we've gotten a lot of feedback and comments and suggestions to make sure that our training includes trauma-informed care on the DSP side. So we'll definitely take that into consideration when we start developing the DSP piece. Fees to agencies or by users to access the curriculum. We haven't, at this time, no, but we haven't quite figured out the long-term plan. Part of it depends on if there's a fee to access the learning platform. Currently, that you're not paying a fee for training, so we don't want it to cost more. But so at this point, there is no plan to charge a fee for this access to the training. Yet another, for us anyway. If we develop, as we mentioned early on, we're using federal funds right now to develop this curriculum, which is helpful for us. So we don't have a plan right now to charge fees. Let's see. So another question about what happens if we start in the fall of 2024. So this curriculum, Abby, can you go through the timeline again for the rollout of this curriculum on the aging side? And I think there's a confusion about that.
Sure. After feedback from you all and from the aging services folks, and we have a meeting planned for them on July 19th. We got more questions in a certain order, so we're doing it this way, but their meeting will be July 19th, where we'll have a partner meeting similar to this, where we'll walk through everything and invite public comments on it. We're hoping to roll this out in the fall of this year for aging services to take the place of the PSS course. It's been quite some time since that curriculum was updated, and we do want to ensure that the rollout plan meets the needs of our populations with, informed from providers, but hoping to create an opportunity to use something better as soon as we can. So still working out some of those logistics, but that's our tentative timeline is fall 2024, and then we're hoping to have the DSP modules in sometime in the 2025.
Right. And that's when we would roll this out, the DSW. So you don't worry about, stay with the current process for your DSPs and training right now. We've extended our contract for the next year, and that's our plan is to have you continue with that. We will transition to this in a way that you are all clearly informed about what that looks like and timeline for that and everything. We wouldn't just say, oh, you got to switch to this tomorrow. So this is really the beginning stages of the work on the DSP side of the house, on the folks who are serving individuals with IDD in your agencies. Plan to reference to curriculum updates, having our own. A plan in place in reference to curriculum updates. I'm not, Abby, I don't know if you've seen that question. I think what I just meant was if we needed to update the curriculum in any way, since it's on our learning platform and it's our curriculum, we'll be able to update it more easily than perhaps if we've purchased some modules from someplace. Um, let's see, any consideration being given to incorporate the START model on the DSP portion? So the START model is through UNH START. They have training that we have been funding over the last year and a half that targets more serving individuals with significant behavioral health support and IDD support needs and IDD. So we're offering that now. It's an option for DSP training. I think there's another session that people can sign up for, DSPs can sign up for this coming fall. But that's a separate training that's owned by UNH START. So we wouldn't incorporate it into the DSP, but it's possible that we might use that as part of our request for DSPs who are going to be serving these folks, or an option for people to serve folks who have more significant behavioral health support needs going forward. That would be a training we recommend. Okay. Any other questions? I don't know, Abby or Crystal, if you have any other. I think we got through most of the questions.
I'm already getting email messages from y'all, so thank you. I feel very popular.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Well, this is great. I'm glad it's people are engaging. It'll be wonderful.
Any other questions? Either you can put them in the Q&A. Oh. Okay. I see. So the point made about the planning for updates was the state didn't have the capacity to do the plan to make the updates in the curriculum. So, I mean, I guess what I would say is we definitely want to plan for updates in our system, and we're building in a sustainability plan for this curriculum and the support that we need around it. Any other questions or comments or feedback? All right. Tammy. Can't hear you.
I can't unmute.
Yep.
There we go. I put my questions in the chat, but I don't know if you, just based on the volume of questions you guys are getting. One of my questions was currently with like section 12, 19, and 96, some of the PSSs can test out if they're a CNA and they go to be a PSS. Say they've taken their DSP course because they're newly entering this type of workforce. Are they going to have that same type of option with this new course that's required during the transition? Not after it's already been implemented, but during that transition, are they going to have that option? Or do we know yet?
So do you mean a DSP would have the option to I'm not quite sure.
No.
Yeah.
Sorry. So currently, if a PSS comes on board, they're just being hired. They have never taken the PSS course, but they have their CNA certification. they could be allowed to test out and just
Oh,
test out of the course. Is that option going to be the same
I don't know.
during this transition period, or do we know yet?
We haven't talked about that. That would be a Karen question, Abby.
Yeah, I can take that question back to Karen. It's
Yeah.
certainly feedback that's helpful to get, and we'll take it back in for consideration.
Just, I'm sure providers are probably going to be asking that question. And the other question that I had was, how are these changes going to affect the current main care policy and requirements for certifications that providers have to have? If this rollout starts out in fall of 2024, it'll affect your section 12, 19, and 96 providers. And then when you start rolling it out in 2025 for 18, 20, 21, and 29 providers, how's that going to affect the policy and requirements that we have? And what standards are we going to be held to?
I think we're currently working with OMS on figuring out the details of all of that as part of the larger rollout plan. This is really an initial step to start beginning that feedback process, but I didn't mean to cut you off, Betsy. I apologize.
No, that's exactly what I was going to say, Abby. Yeah,
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate it.
great. I'm sorry if I've missed some of your other questions. I thought I'd gotten to them all. Oh, will this training be used with the lifespan waiver DSP providers? So yes, a DSP in section 29 or 21 or lifespan is a DSP. So it'll be the same criteria if you're going to work as a DSP in any of the waivers. Update on I don't have an update on the CRMA curriculum at this point. There's somebody asked me that. That would come from licensing. And somebody's recommending that this training also be required of case managers for training new case managers. So I think, as I mentioned, this stuff definitely will be available for any agencies that want to use it for their case managers. And I don't disagree, actually, that this could be really helpful for case managers to have. Okay, any other questions? I think I got through most of them that were online. Well, good. Well, thanks again for joining us, and all your questions and comments, really helpful as we move ahead with this plan, and more to come. There's an opportunity for you to look at the curriculum right now, the DSW curriculum, as Crystal has said. Look forward to your comments on that. And then as we think about the DSP piece, we'll be engaging with you all too as we move forward with that. Thanks again. Have a good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Abby and Crystal and Miranda.